Welcome to Garden Views, interesting conversations with interesting people who have done and or are doing interesting things. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome everybody into Garden Views, and we're continuing our legal theme, and we're very happy to have our guest this episode that's going to talk to us a little bit about military law and some aspects related to that. And it's Andy Gross. He is a Maryland attorney. He has also been in various parts of the service, from the reserves to the U.S. Army on active duty. He's currently a major in the Maryland Army National Guard. He's been a judge advocate general, which are military lawyers. He was also with the Office of the State's Attorney, and also spent a bunch of his career representing kids who were poisoned by lead paint. That is certainly something that's near and dear to him. He's got a whole lot of organizations that he's part of, so I'm going to read some of them off. It's with the Bar Association of Baltimore City, the Baltimore County Bar Association. He's in the Young Lawyers section and Veterans Affairs and Military Law section of the Maryland State Bar Association. How young are you?
I'm 38, so the Young Lawyers section I'm in by just like 18 months.
I know how it works. I was
hanging up.
I was in the Young Members section of the Commercial Law League, and the deal is that if you were an officer, you could stay in until your officer terms expired. So I was like the Young Members section chair at 43, and then you're a past chair, so you're still on it, and then you're like the designee to the Board of Governors. So I was able to statutorily say I was young until my early to mid 40s. So that's always fun. The Maryland Association for Justice, the National Organization for Veterans Advocates. He's licensed to practice in Maryland, D.C., the local and federal courts, the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, and he's accredited to represent veterans before the Department of Veterans Affairs. He's on the board of Habitat for Humanity of the Chesapeake's Young Professionals Program. If anyone doesn't know, everything in the Maryland, Virginia area is called Chesapeake because of the bay. So if you hear Chesapeake, that's a pretty good idea as to this part of the world. But Habitat for Humanity, you know what it is. President Jimmy Carter builds houses for underprivileged persons, domestically and internationally. So Andy is kind enough that he's going to talk to us about military law, and this is going to be mostly guest-led, but I imagine we're going to be talking about the Code of Military Justice, what's a court-martial, what are administrative issues, what are veterans' claims, why do they sometimes feel like they're so difficult to get, and what are our veterans' rights and recourses. So without further ado, Andy Gross, thank you so much for coming in and giving us your time.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you for your service. So I'm going to let you sort of start. This is sort of like a primer 101. So I don't know if you want to tell anything more about yourself, or you just want to launch sort of into content. It's really up to you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can talk a little bit about myself. I mean, it's like you give a lawyer the opportunity to talk about themselves, and it's like we're not quite at surgeon level or pilot level of vanity, but maybe someday I can get there. So
if you went to Harvard.
Yeah, if I try hard enough. Yeah, no, I went to the Harvard of the Patapsco Drainage Basin, aka the University of Baltimore School of Law.
Oh wow.
The creatively named UBBs. I think that's still their mascot. So no, and I was a law clerk, and I for a long time I wanted to join the military in some form or fashion, and I looked into various things, and ultimately decided, being a military lawyer, I could go to law school, get that knocked out, and then use my law degree in the service. So I applied for I applied to JAG Corps. It's actually a pretty competitive thing to apply for, and I got turned down a couple times. Um, so there are a lot of very smart people applying for those jobs, and I was not high enough on the list. But eventually, they took me as a reservist. Um, so I that was about 2009, and I did some active duty training, and then I came back and to my day job, and didn't have my day job anymore. That's another story. But 2009, 2010 was a rough time to be looking for work as a lawyer. But my previous employer and I were at loggerheads with some statutory protections for military reservists, which is, again, probably a whole episode in of itself. But I was on active duty, and then there were a lot of what they call mobilizations, where they basically need people in uniform to fill in, help the active component, the regular 9 to 5 Army, go do stuff. So I did that. I mobilized for 2.5 years. Part of that was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I did legal assistance work to start, which was, I helped soldiers who needed wills and various consumer law issues, a lot of estate planning, actually, because we were deploying troops like crazy to Iraq and Afghanistan at the time. And then I became a prosecutor, military prosecutor, prosecuting everything from drug dealing to larceny to sexual assault, to various types of other assaults. And then from there, I actually decided that I just enjoyed myself so much, so I went on to about 5 more years of active duty time out of the reserves. Was a prosecutor, a defense attorney, administrative law attorney, which is basically like sort of doing internal compliance with the military.
Can I ask you a question about when you do the wills and the estate planning as the legal assistant, but then you become a prosecutor? If you did the will or the power of attorney or whatever for that service member, does it become a conflict for you? I mean, I imagine if you were on the defense side, it wouldn't, because it's lots of times the private attorney is there, both the criminal defense attorney and they did their estate planning. But the prosecutor, not so much in the non-military arena. So is it an issue in the military or no?
It is, but there are enough of us that we can easily move out of conflict situations. We can just swap people out.
Okay.
So, I mean, to give you an idea, in a division of so the basic structure of the military or the Army is you have a division, which is led by a 2-star general, and you might have 3 or 4 or 5 brigades underneath that, and each brigade has 3 attorneys, and the division probably has a dozen or more attorneys working at the division itself. I mean, it's you might have something like a total of 15,000 people, and maybe a total of 20, 25 attorneys spread across the entire organization. So you do have you can swap people out if you need to, if there's a conflict issue. So
gotcha. Okay. So you just we used to call it Chinese wall. You take yourself out of the equation, someone takes your space in, and you promise never to look or talk about it.
Yeah, it's pretty much how it works. Now with criminal defense work, if you ever watched the TV show Jag from I guess it was the 90s and the 2000s.
I remember.
The fighter pilot turned Navy lawyer, which is, I'd say, an atypical career path by and large.
Yeah, it sounds that way, but yeah, I remember the show.
There are pilots who become lawyers in the Army. I mean, they do their 6 or 7 years flying helicopters, and they get to a certain point in their career, and they go, "I'm going to do a lot of staff work and never actually get to fly helicopters. So maybe I'll go do some lawyering instead," because you could as you become higher in rank, you can actually still do lawyer stuff as opposed to just I'm a not actually if you're an aviation officer, you don't fly much when you're a colonel. You're doing a lot of paperwork and meetings. So so the defense. So in JAG, if you remember that TV show, they would sort of start the episode and they'd go, "Okay, you're representing the defendant and you're representing the government in this case. Go to work." And in reality, there's like this what they call stovepiped organization of defense attorneys, and basically it's like a pool of defense attorneys that are based out of an organization in Washington D.C. And the idea is that we don't work for the same command or generals that are also prosecuting these guys, because the last thing you'd want to have happen is that, like, if the general is pushing for prosecution, um, you don't want the you want to have a zealous advocate for the soldier. You
Mhm.
don't want that soldier's defense attorney going, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to get a terrible review by the general's people because I'm doing this thing." So the cool thing about being a defense attorney was that we're in the organization. We were in the organization, so to speak, but we actually, a lot of us sewed little pirate flags underneath our collars of our uniforms to signify that, like, we're here, but like our allegiance is not to the general. We're here to fight for the soldier.
Yeah, the
So
different
we
chain of
all,
command.
yeah, we're outside the chain of command. We're because you want the soldiers to be able to trust us, because these soldiers are often facing years and years in prison, potentially. So it was a fun experience to be able to I answered to when I was a captain, I answered to a major, but that major answered to a lieutenant colonel who was thousands of miles away, and um, I could I could piss people off in the command with impunity, relative impunity. So that was always a hoot.
You seem like you're still happy about that. A little gleeful.
Yeah, it's defending being a defense attorney is both incredibly rewarding and incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
A lot of when you're if you're doing defense work, um, a lot of your cases are just a lot of your cases are going to be good people who did dumb or bad
Sure.
dumb things or bad things for one reason or another. It's a very rare case where you actually have somebody truly malevolent who is just and a lot of times just people who are flawed. Maybe they're fighting demons and they fight it with drugs and whatever. But in the military, you have good people who signed up to, as the expression goes, defend the country, write a blank check to Uncle Sam for the value of up to and including their own life. So when you have the chance to really to defend these people, and to really hold the government's feet to the fire, that is massively rewarding. Um, and but it's a difficult job because you see some good people who just were in a bad spot. Things come crashing down around them, and it's sad because things were going well until they did something stupid.
Now, when they're charged, are they charged under a state or federal law, or are they charged under the Code of Military Justice, which is sort of its own body of law?
So yeah, there's its own body of law. So it's a federal criminal law basically, and the federal criminal law that you might be charged with in federal court is under 18 United States codes, Title 18 United States Code. All the stuff you shouldn't do to piss off the feds is in 18 United States Code, or rather, all the stuff that they can punish you for.
Mhm.
Under 10 United States Code, which is all of the military stuff, everything from establishing the various branches of service down to, whatever Congress authorizes. That's in what's called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and it's a relatively new thing. Only came about since about 1951. I think if I'm correct. It might be 1949, but before that they had various other statutory regimes with which they could punish soldiers. They could use to punish soldiers. So but before the UCMJ, they still did courts martial, but they were very much based on like Prussian military traditions.
Oh, good.
So,
Prussians. Very efficient,
yeah,
right?
right. The Prussians had a pretty good model for the military. I mean, not enough to keep the Prussians around as the Prussian Empire, but nevertheless. So it's they had some really good ideas as to how to run a military, and we've actually modeled our military for centuries now, since it's been around, on a lot of these concepts. So we have, this Uniform Code of Military Justice, which was put in place in 1951. It's been amended a bunch of times since. Um, we we have a whole judiciary set up. We have military judges who are very senior judge advocates, lawyers. We have defense attorneys. We have statutes. Now, we can, under the Assimilated Crimes Act, incorporate state law into a trial. But we have the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is very heavily influenced by the federal criminal rules of procedure, and the federal criminal, some of these rules. Now, at the same time, it's like it's kind of wild how it works, right? So there's a whole different language we use for a lot of these things. Any commander can do what's called preferring charges on somebody, which just means charge them with something. And there are various authorities, individuals who are, commanders who are vested with an authority to convene a court martial. So any rando in the military can charge somebody else with something, but then it's got to go be forwarded to a court martial convening authority, who, depending on their level of authorization, can send it to us to various levels of court martial, ranging from what's called a summary court martial up to a general court martial.
Who is this authority? Is it 3 people? Is it 12 people? Is it 1 person?
Hundreds. So anybody can charge anybody with anything based on the way the code is written. Now, what's called the convening authorities, there are a number of so the president has given authority to certain generals, or also high-ranking people, because not all of them are generals, but like 99% of them are. What's called General Court Martial Convening Authority, which means that they can refer somebody's case to the Army's trial judiciary to try a general court martial. The general also nominates a pool, what they call, I guess, a veneer or panel to the judiciary to pick a jury. Now, these generals can then nominate subordinate commanders to have lower levels of convening authority. So below the general is a special court martial convening authority, and below that is a summary court martial convening authority. So what we call GCMs, General Court Martial Convening Authorities, GCMCAs. The GCMCAs then are given this power to then sort of dole out the authorities to subordinate commanders as they see fit. That kind of makes sense in a way. And usually it's like a standing thing, right? So the 82nd Airborne Division, right? The famous 82nd Airborne Division, that commander is a GCMCA, but then they've probably set up their brigade commanders, which is sort of like the next level down of command, to become special court martial convening authorities. And they've also probably designated the battalion commanders, which is the next level below brigade, to be summary court martial convening authorities. So it all starts from the top and then delegated down to the degree it can be according to statute.
Okay. So there's a lot of, so it's sort of like, I mean, every place doesn't have it, but sort of here in Maryland, we have district court commissioners. Some places might call it a magistrate, but I guess the convening authority is loosely analogous to the magistrate or the district court commissioner. Anyone, like you said, some rando, anyone can bring a summons, but the magistrate or the convening authority needs to sort of sign off on it. And if so, then it gets referred to another authority, which I guess would be the state's attorney's office here in Maryland, or the district attorney's office in a lot of other places. And the prosecutor decides if they're going to go forward.
So no, prosecutors don't have prosecutorial discretion in the military.
Oh, if it's referred, they have to go forward.
Yeah. So here's, and this is where it gets wild, because it's kind of hard to compare to civilian system. So, right, in the civilian system, anyone can swear out charges. The district court commissioner turns that into a charge sheet, and the prosecutor can say, there's no evidence for this, or, oh my goodness, there's tons of evidence for this, right? Mm-hmm. Or the police department can do that same charge sheet, but then it's ultimately got to get into the system somehow from the police department, and the prosecutor reviews and decides what to do with it. In the military system, you might have law enforcement refers the issue to the command, right? And the chain of command decides, okay, I'm going to either do charges or not do charges. And then it gets forwarded up the chain of command such that the convening authority can decide on disposition. They can decide to accept a plea agreement. They can decide to send it to court martial. They can decide to dismiss it outright. And then they can approve or disapprove the findings of the court martial under certain circumstances. That's changed recently because just the way things are. Some I don't say politics, but Congress was not impressed with the way that the military was handling sexual assault, so they started removing some of the leeway that the commanders have. Now, of course, this is all changing now, by the way, because they're removing the commanders, a lot of the prosecutorial discretion from the commanders, who then just tell the prosecutors what to do, and instead saying, okay, prosecutors, you're the ones who make the prosecutorial decisions. And the logic behind that is that it's going to be more of a dispassionate, analytical approach to whether or not there's sufficient evidence to take something to trial, what have you. Commanders, they got to work with these soldiers, and it's like, well, do we want to prosecute this soldier? He's a good soldier. I don't think we want to prosecute him. So, and I'm not sure how true that is, but it only takes a couple very, very well publicized cases to really mess with the system.
Right. Well, the one in Fort Hood recently, of course. So, I guess
what a disaster that was.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see and hope. But I understand that they took it away from the commanders and invested in the prosecutors. So the prosecutors in the military have power in certain areas, but generally speaking, it's the commander's decision.
Yeah, so military justice, as we say, is a command program. And the idea is that, this is what, in order to, you have this law enforcement mechanism to maintain good order and discipline amongst your troops. And that is necessary because, if your job is to fight and win wars, you need to have good order and discipline.
Sure.
So that's sort of the logic behind it.
Is it all criminal, or is there also sort of a distinction between criminal and civil?
So there is an analog civil remedy inside the Uniform Code of Military Justice, but it's really weird and never used.
Okay.
If one of your rights is being violated, you can file basically a claim with your boss and ask for redress from the next higher commander. It's a very tricky thing to use, and it has to be sort of a very clear right that you have as a service member. With regards to civil remedies, like if the military breaks your stuff, for instance, like the military moves you around. Like when I moved back to Maryland, they broke my TV and my surfboard. Right. I can file an administrative claim, and they eventually pay you some money.
Which was more important?
I'm sorry?
Which was more important to you?
Well, my wife was pregnant. We were about to have kids, so the surfboard was not going to get much use at all.
Okay. Very practical. Which one hurt your soul more?
Surfboard, 100%.
Okay, that's what I was going for.
Yeah, no. As a parent of young children, we kind of have like a garage full of the things that used to make us cool.
Yeah. Right, it's a museum now.
It's a museum now, but the kids are fun most of the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have kids, but you're talking about little kids, so.
Yeah. So, 5 and 2.5. So
yeah.
Anyway, eventually, when we had after my first kid, and we were kind of planning this on a while. The military is known for making you move every 2 to 3 years, and I realized that in order to make it to retirement, I was about 11 years away from retirement when I left active duty. I was going to have to move 7 more times, and that wasn't fair to the family. My wife, it's stressful and it's frustrating. So I left and I went to Um, I left and I got picked up at a small civil litigation firm, general practitioner's firm in Towson. And the boss there said, "Hey, I've been hearing about this veterans disability benefits work. You should look into it." And I go, I just got out of the military. Can I just learn how to become a civil litigator, right? Like, I kind of know some stuff from my time as a clerk, but I kind of know some stuff because I did some of the civil litigation because the Army does get sued. So and there's civil litigation in the military against the military or involving the military, and I did some of that. But I want to get good at this whole civil litigation thing. And he's like, no, you should take a look at it.
Yeah, let me guess. Let me guess. He office spaced you. He said, super. But so this veteran affairs thing and this veteran benefits thing is like a contingency based thing that like we can really tap into that. So yeah, the civil litigation thing, that's great, but let's focus on the veteran stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because he had no idea about anything about the veteran stuff. He's just like, you speak the language and go ahead and do it. And he had an attorney who went and left for to become one of the Board of Veterans Appeals in-house counsel. So he's like, yeah, you should totally do it. So I started taking it. So I got the accreditation that's required, did a little bit of training. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then my very first client was a guy who was no joke, like at a unit whose building was like 100 yards away from mine when I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I said, these are, I don't say veterans are my people because that sounds such a lame thing to say because like I have like a lot of distinct groups of people, right? But there was a kinship with these other folks.
They're part of your club. They're part of your tribe. But whatever the word is, you have commonalities.
There's commonalities, and the cool thing is that I get to tap into that same helping service members thing that I had done while I was in active duty in that defense role, or is that doing the legal assistance stuff and the defense attorney stuff. So that was probably late 2017. I started the veterans benefits work, and then I went to another firm that lasted about 2 more years, and then about a year ago, my boss at that firm said to me, he said, "Listen, Andy, you've got so much veterans benefits work, like, and we don't do veterans benefits work. You're just kind of like sitting here minding some cases. Like, why don't you just like go do your own thing, right? I was doing a fee split that didn't make any sense, and just go do your own thing, right?" I'm like, okay, so I thought about it, and by the end of that was on a Friday. On Monday, I said, "All right, we're doing this," and that's how the law office of Andrew P. Gross came to be. So now I've got maybe 150 veterans disability benefits clients, give or take, and since 2017, I did the math. I've recovered about $1.1 million in VA disability benefits payments for clients. Maybe a little more. I don't think I've totaled it up recently, but that's just back pay, right? That does not include
continuation of benefits. Let's circle back to the veterans benefits because I know that's an entire issue, but I want to go back to the courts martial, and I guess a couple things. One, give your best definition of what a court martial is. B, there are things up to but lesser than court martial, and what are those avenues? And sort of generally speaking, what's the process there? Are there other administrative remedies, etc.? And then we can move totally into the veteran stuff because we'll like sort of finish the while in the military aspect, and then we'll go into the post-military aspect.
Yeah. So there, I actually have a whole slideshow presentation on this as I teach young commanders what's in their toolbox, and we call it the commander's toolkit, right?
Sure.
Military justice, good order, and discipline. There's a whole commander's toolkit, and it ranges anything from a verbal or even a written counseling, like you screwed up, do better next time, to what they call non-judicial punishment. And that can result in reduction, depending on a number of factors, can result in reduction in rank and losing pay and stuff like that for enlisted, at least for lower enlisted. There's also administrative reprimands that can be issued by a general called a General Officer Memorandum of Reprimand, and that's like a counseling, but really really bad because it goes in your permanent file and promotion boards see it, and you'll never see another promotion board again if one ends up in your permanent file more often than not. There's something called corrective training, where which is one of my favorite tools, right? Like Sergeant or Private Snuffy is keeps showing up late to the morning formation. Morning formation, you got to be in your spot at 6:15 in the morning, 06:15, and Private Snuffy keeps showing up at 6:32. So Private Snuffy corrective training involves, okay, for Private Snuffy, his formation, he's got a very special formation. It starts at 0600, and if he's late for that one, well, he's got another very special formation at 0545. So there are a lot of very special training techniques that you can, have soldiers write essays on why they will not drink while underage in the barracks, right?
Right.
Stuff like that. So a lot of tools in the toolbox. Short of that, there's also administrative separations where you can, in the Army language, is chapter somebody out. And I say chapter because it's literally a chapter in a regulation. And you can chapter somebody out for a pattern of poor conduct. You can chapter somebody out for what they call commission of a serious offense, which is, usually drug intoxication, or maybe a DUI. You can kick somebody out, and usually results in somebody getting something other than an honorable discharge. So if you get administratively separated, it'd be something like an other than honorable discharge, or a general under honorable conditions discharge. So to be clear, there are 5 types of discharges. You can only get a dishonorable discharge from a court-martial that gives a dishonorable discharge. And that's only for certain offenses.
And honorable discharge is everything that's fine. Normal to exemplary is honorable.
So honorable, like if you just show up for your time in service and you don't cause trouble and you're really perfectly mediocre, you'll get an honorable discharge. You get your GI Bill, you get everything.
Up to Captain America, that's honorable discharge. But there's different levels of bad exits.
Exactly. Like all the way up from the guy that passes a PT test by the skin of his teeth to Medal of Honor winner who is now an Olympian, right?
Right.
Honorable discharge, right? If you screw up a little, you probably get like a general under honorable conditions discharge. If you screw up a lot, it might be an other than honorable discharge. And you can still get a lot of benefits for these things, like from the VA, but like the number of benefits start going away once you lose that honorable discharge status.
Is loss of rank and benefits, is that part and parcel of that, or is that just something that's in TV and movies?
Well, it's a separate process by and large. So if you were to give somebody non-judicial punishment, and a reduction in rank is part of the punishment, that's part of the punishment. Separating them is a whole separate thing, is a whole separate mechanism, due process procedure.
So if you're being court-martialed, a way out of it, some disposition, some settlement isn't like, I don't know, you're a sergeant, now you're busted down to private, and you don't get your benefits. That's not how it works, or it can.
So there is actually, if you're being court-martialed, there's a specific discharge in lieu of court-martial where you usually end up with an other than honorable discharge, which when you get an other than honorable discharge, there's a thing in the statute where your rank actually gets lowered to the lowest enlisted rank. So that other than honorable, you get kicked out. You don't go to jail, you don't get a criminal conviction, but you're not getting your GI Bill to pay for college either.
Is that like a plea bargain, or is that part of the punishment that can be?
It's a plea bargain.
Okay, so it's something that's mutually agreed upon. If you lose a court-martial, you're being dishonorably discharged.
Well, not always. You can actually. I had a number of cases where we were able to. So there are a couple of different ways to punish. So let's say somebody gets convicted of a heinous crime, right? Real heinous crime. certain heinous crimes have these mandatory minimums, like the sexual assault stuff these days has a mandatory minimum, effectively, of dishonorable discharge, right? But let's say it's something else. Let's say some other terrible crime. You can get an other than honorable discharge. I'm sorry. You can be awarded, or rather punished with, a bad conduct discharge or dishonorable discharge. Plus, there's forfeitures of pay and allowance. Then there's incarceration. You can also be sentenced to hard labor, right? Which is a fun one, because hard labor is more of a punishment on the command than it is on the soldier, because the command has to now supervise the hard labor, and it's a huge pain in the neck. Judges give hard labor to soldiers who they want to punish, but also want to tell the command that they screwed up too.
What is hard labor now? I mean, obviously we think about people on chain gangs, like, hitting rocks with hammers and things like that.
It's that. It's
really?
Like your job is to, you'll be given 10 empty sandbags. Your job is to fill up 10 sandbags and then dump them back out and then fill them back up again. And you will do this from, 9 in the morning or whatever till 9 at night, and you will get a half an hour lunch break and 15-minute breaks, a couple times a day. Basically, they can't kill you during this, but
so it's not even useful. It's not even like they can send you to, I don't know, let's just say New Orleans, and you can help the Corps of Engineers build levees.
No, so it's funny. Hard labor, actually, and this is, you only know this if you had to actually deal with it. It's a very rare punishment, because
hope so.
But you've only had to deal with this. It has to actually be not productive. It has to be unproductive.
So it's literally Monty Python, the Holy Grail, where you're taking mud piles and then undoing the mud piles and creating the mud pile on the right, and then redoing it on the left.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's supposed to be some sort of Sisyphean task. It's awful, and it's a major pain in the butt for everybody involved. But the thing is, non-judicial punishment. Non-judicial punishment, you can actually give somebody extra duty, which is different than hard labor. Extra duty can be all right, everyone goes home at 1700, 5 o'clock, right? Except you are going to clean this thing that hasn't been cleaned in a while, or
KP, keep peeling.
Yeah, you're gonna peel potatoes, right?
Guard duty.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone peeling potatoes, but it might be, you are, we're going to turn on all the lights in the motor pool, and you need to go find every crack in the motor pool and pick out all the weeds and do all that. It is usually the menial tasks that they might just have otherwise have a work day to do. Hey, everybody, we're doing this task. Area beautification is what they call it. Everyone's doing it, but it also might just be filing papers, or just taking something that has to get done but isn't getting done, and it sucks. But you do your time. You get up to 45 days of this extra duty.
Okay,
hard labor is totally menial, totally Sisyphean. It can't be brutal, to the point where you get hurt or something. But
right, it's not cruel and unusual punishment. But it is cruel and unusual punishment.
It is both cruel and unusual, because but it's unusual because it's just so weird.
Right.
Whatever they might have you doing.
It doesn't offend the conscience. It just sucks. All right, two things. One, the military has its own prison system, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right out there at so Fort Leavenworth. There's not much out there. Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. It's there's what they call a senior service college. Majors go there and get smart on I don't know, how to be better senior leaders. And then there's
you're a major.
I'm sorry?
You're a major. You may have to go out there.
So yeah, they have a year-long course out there, and you get a master's in military studies from an accredited college. It's a bizarre thing, and a lot of folks do it. And if you get the year-long gig, it kind of is a nod that you're on your track. Everyone's got to do something. I can do the correspondence school version, and I'll get a master's degree, which I'm totally okay with. It would be a degree that's paid for though, unlike all my other ones.
Well, that's good.
So, but there's two jails out there basically. There's the it's called the U.S. Disciplinary Barracks for folks that who have over a 10-year sentence, and then there's what's called a regional corrections facility where if you're there under 10 years. And by the way, you get all kinds of diminution credits. There's parole. There's a parole board. Everything, but there are actually a couple regional confinement facilities around the country. They may have shut some of them down to consolidate them, but there used to be one at like Fort Lewis, Washington, and there used to be one at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Sure.
So,
and are there any appeal rights with these adverse findings, whether it's a court-martial or otherwise?
So court-martial, yes. There's a whole appellate court system. So there's, for the Army, it's the Army Court of Criminal Appeals, which is basically senior Army judges. Then there's the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, which are civilians sitting in Washington, D.C., right at Judiciary Square. And then above that is the Supreme Court.
So there is a road for military justice cases to get to the United States Supreme Court.
There absolutely is, yeah. So, and then for the non-judicial punishment, you can appeal to like the next higher commander, but by and large, there's much less due process in those.
Okay, all right. Is there anything on the in military code of military justice writ large that we haven't covered in what is obviously a 101 201 level overview?
No, I think that's it. I think it's the wild thing is that when you're in the military, if you're active duty at least, your bosses have jurisdiction over you no matter where you are and when you are. So if you're in the Army astronaut program floating in low Earth orbit, guess what? Still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Wow.
So it's the weekend, still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Even Space Force, huh?
Space Force, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They are, they are absolutely part of it. And quite frankly, I would love to, if I could go all over again, I'd love to be a space check.
Yeah. I'm totally volunteering for Space Force.
Yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer. So
yeah, if William Shatner could go into low orbit, I can too. I mean, geez.
Yeah, right.
All right. So let's go back into the veterans affairs matters. So why don't you just give us an overview of what the Veterans Administration is supposed to do and where it has its shortcomings, where an attorney such as yourself comes into it, and what do you do and what can you hope to get for your clients?
So VA, once you're out of the service, the VA is supposed to take care. It's basically America's promise to service members. So once you're out, we're going to take care of you for the sacrifices you made for the good of the country, right? Like your body is like the rental car, and the Army is like that teenager that you should have never rented it to, right? So VA is then the insurance policy, the extra insurance policy that you're smart enough to buy when you picked up the rental car to begin with. So there's VA disability, and it's, if you're familiar with workers' compensation, it's kind of sort of like that, but not. VA disability compensation, if you incur an injury or an exposure or some sort of condition while you're on active duty, and you have that same, and it leads to disability afterwards, the VA will compensate you for that. Now, it's not exactly tied to whether or not you are your degree of occupational impairment necessarily. For instance, we all know folks who are just totally basically crippled because of their back, right? Back problems.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't. The VA ratings only go up to like 40% for back problems, 60% under some certain circumstances. But it's wild. But then, like for other stuff, you can get up to 100%. So, and it's not based on what your earning potential is. So, workers' compensation, they take your weekly wage, your average weekly wage is the phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they determine a degree of disability that the condition has resulted in, and then they determine, okay, based on this, this is what we're gonna pay you. The VA has dollar values set by the percentage of disability, regardless of whether you are an attorney or you are never going to make more than $15 an hour because of your, that's just your vocational track was never going to lead you to be more than minimum wage, right?
There's a dollar amount tied to the percentage, regardless of whether you were minimum wage or you were a neurosurgeon.
Exactly, right? So, which, for better or for worse. So it's kind of an odd system in that regard. And it's also not that you don't necessarily have to incur injuries on active duty, or rather, you are on active duty, but you don't have to while on duty, right? So let's say it's Saturday and I get hit by a drunk driver and I'm injured by the drunk driver. I can get VA disability for that injury, even though it had nothing to do with the military. I just happened to be on active duty at the time.
Well, your coverage in your example, you got umbrella coverage for your life as well.
Exactly. So there's, it's basically a really great disability policy that comes with your service, right? So a lot of employers will offer disability policies, so will the VA.
When they say yes. So it's really great when they say yes, but you probably come in when they say no.
Yeah, so the challenge is that, and the system's set up such that the benefit of the doubt is actually goes to the veteran. So the veteran has to meet a very low standard, which is, whatever condition they have now is as likely as it is not related to something in service, right? So it's 50-50 mere equipoise, not preponderance of the evidence. The problem is that the VA is a very large, very complicated organization that doesn't always follow its own rules. In fact, they very often don't follow their own rules.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't communicate well with the veteran because theoretically you're supposed to be able to do this all yourself or with the help of a veteran service organization, which is congressionally chartered organization. But realistically, just applying for disability benefits, like let's say you have an ankle that's arthritic from a broken ankle you got from a ruck march while you're on active duty, right? It's an 11-page form. 5 pages are like single space, 8-point font instructions. If they deny your claim for whatever reason, how you can appeal within 1 year, but how you appeal is like very complicated, right? You can fill out one of 3 forms. And each of these 3 forms requires you to do different things, different quests you got to go on. And it's like, if you want the VA to get your private medical records from your doctor, right? From, like, let's say I'm out of the military, I'm now part of the, MedStar, right? This is my primary care physician. You have to fill out not like just a regular HIPAA release form that you might get. But you see, it's a 214142 and a 214142A forms that you have to submit. And it's not user friendly. It's when you get a rating decision, it's very boilerplate. Like, these are the decisions that you have to appeal. It's very boilerplate. It does a very poor job explaining the rationale behind it because it's so boilerplate. It's often internally inconsistent because they basically generate the form by clicking on some drop-down menus. So there's a lot of inconsistencies in this. And if you want to see the claims file that might have the medical evaluations and some of the background, you have to file a FOIA request, and it might take anywhere from 6 months to a year to just get the file in your hand. And you get a CD with 1,000 pages of records on them. So if you were designing a system, you would not design it this way at all. It makes no sense. You can't get electronic notification. If I get a decision, it's got to get mailed to me.
Right.
Right? You can't email it to me. There's no there's some portal that you can use, but the portal is not easily to navigate. It's a lot of the appeals that I do are just based on trying to untangle a knot and get the VA to follow its own rules and read the records and then come up with a decision based on the appropriate standards. Or a lot of times so the VA will do like what they call a claim and pension exam, but the doctors they hire don't know how to do the exam. They don't know the standard. They don't train the doctors very well. And a lot of them aren't even doctors. They're nurse practitioners or PAs. And I don't have anything against nurse practitioners or PAs at all. I think that they are such an important part of the healthcare delivery system. But you would not go to a PA and say, listen, I have nodules on my lung from what I believe is exposure to a burn pit. My right knee hurts because I sprained it. My lower back hurts, and I have tingling down my left leg from, I believe, my lower back. Oh, and by the way, I have these headaches that when they come on, I'm just laid out for the rest of the day, and I can't do anything about it, right? Like, you wouldn't have them treat anything. This NP or PA would probably say, like, well, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to refer you to physical therapy. We're going to refer you to a oncologist. We're going to refer you, right? They would send you out to the various specialists.
Right.
The NPs and PAs who do these CMP exams go like, nah, I got this. And they'll write like 2 sentences that don't have verb tense agreement on why they believe your condition to be related or not related to service, and fighting to get the VA to give appropriate, to have an appropriately qualified individual to give these exams is just part of the fight that we have to do.
Is the cynics' reason for this the same as unemployment and insurance companies, that statistically enough people just give up, that it makes it that they save money in doing so? Or is it just some sort of institutional inertia or reflex that they can't help themselves?
I think it's the latter more than the former, because the insurance companies, like, their motives are clear, right? And I'm going to sound like a total socialist when I say this, but like, insurance companies are the devil, because they are, but you need it, right? But the reason insurance companies have fountains in their lobbies and pay out their stockholders gajillions of dollars is because they take money from you and then don't give it back to you, right? Mm-hmm. So through one way or another, right? So they'll figure out every way not to give it back to you. The VA does not have a profit motive. Nothing in the government has a profit motive, right? Obviously, they want to work efficiently. Their goal, though, the stated goal, and I've never found anything to the contrary where they're purposely denying people's claims to save money. It's a function of, congressional intent, which is to take care of veterans, right? You never want to screw over veterans, but it's no one person can say this system is nothing is by, like, no one has the ability to say, okay, we're going to fix these problems, because what you have to do is, like, okay, you have to come up with a regulation that complies with the statute, that goes back and forth. Okay, now we have a notice and comment period. So nothing's ever fast. Right. And then you have a lot of folks in the organization who are, the lower level folks, a lot of them understand the problems because they see it every day. But the higher level folks don't necessarily have that prioritized.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff is designed, like, there's not an organization that I've found inside the VA that says, like, our only job is to look around the VA and make this easier. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you've ever dealt with a government organization, right, you go to Disney, right? If you're in Disney,
sure.
Disney has, like, Apple has designed the user experience to, like, this is what we're selling is user experience. It's why you pay $1,000 for an iPhone 15, whatever we're at right now. It's why you'll spend, it's got to be $200 a day or something for stupid Disney tickets these days. I don't even know. Like, because it's run with the idea of really making things, like, efficient and pleasant to work with.
Don't say stupid on the air. The mouse is going to hear you.
Yeah, right. So, well, I mean, the mouse hears us, right? Don't get me wrong. The mouse gets my money. As long as he keeps putting on great Star Wars content, I will keep throwing the mouse money.
The mouse is pacified.
The mouse is pacified. Okay, pay homage to the mouse.
Yes.
Um,
Acknowledge the mouse.
So and they've done a great job bringing Lin-Manuel Miranda in to write music for things like Encanto and whatever. So anyway,
you are officially outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's 2-year-old, 5-year-old kids. So there's no, they don't have user experience folks who are going through this and going, okay, from the veteran's perspective, how can we make this process as easy and transparent? And this is not just the VA; it's all government organizations, right? There's no, if you want to build if you want to, do something in your house, right, and you need a permit, right? There's never like, what is the easiest way to get a permit, right? There's no like straightforward way. It's like if you get somebody and there's never like all the directions aren't given to you, and there's like 17 steps when there could be 4. And it's horribly inefficient. That's like the same thing with the VA, where it's like starting a business, right? Like in Maryland, I swear I have to there's the comptroller, there's SStat, there's the Maryland New Hire Registry, there's like all these different things I have to file with. Why isn't there just one place, one stop? Put my information, pre-fills half the forms I got to fill out, and that's it, right? No, the VA does not have any kind of holistic view of okay, the veteran, what is the easiest way to get them from point A to point B, to get them the benefits they're rightly entitled to, instead of throwing up artificial roadblocks just in the processing of these issues.
Right, they'd have to break the whole thing and start it over again. And, I guess periodically there's a commission on efficiency, and the commission says, well, we need more people to be advocates. And so then you create a whole nother level of bureaucracy that is well-intentioned and not talking to each other or whatever it is. And you just get more offices and less caregivers.
I think that you could have a double-digit percentage points drop in the number of appeals and a double-digit percentage point increase in the efficiency of the processing of the claims and accuracy of the claims if you just ditch the forms and started from scratch.
Well,
just the forms, not any other aspect of the processing, just the forms.
I assume that you are correct on. Now, let's say obviously someone gets what they want. That's fine. Someone doesn't get what they want. What is the general appeals route?
So very recently, in 2019, they enacted a law called the Appeals Modernization Act, which means that if you get a bad decision, you have 3 appeal options, 2 of which are basically local level appeals that take a couple months, and you have sort of lower level adjudicators re-review these things, maybe submit some additional evidence. But then you can also do something called appealing to the Board of Veterans Appeals. And the Board of Veterans Appeals is basically a bunch of administrative law judges down in Washington, D.C. And I don't think they're all down in Washington, D.C. anymore because of COVID. They're probably half of them are probably working from Florida remotely. But they have each of them has a bunch of decision writing lawyers, and you appeal to this board. You state your case, and they either send the case back down to get additional work and developments, or they can grant benefits there and fix legal errors. There's a lot of lawyers up there, and you get better legal accuracy because they are actually, unlike the VA, which is moving fast and not following its own rules, the Board of Veterans Appeals has a little bit more time to really do deep dives on the files and really follow the rules they need to follow. But they, however, get it wrong too sometimes. And above that is the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And above that, it's the Court of Federal Claims. And then above that, it's the Supreme Court.
Okay. Well, that's the path. And I bet you thought I forgot, but I didn't. When I first dialed us back into the court-martial stuff and the military stuff, you were talking about how the veteran can get back pay, but that there's also compensation on a percentage basis for certain injuries, but that's not all they can get. So why don't you outline the kinds of benefits or awards, whatever terminology is most appropriate, that the veteran can seek and get with a successful claim, whichever way it goes. And if they have to employ someone such as yourself, do the attorney's fees come out of the veterans cut, or does the government pay those fees?
So the most common case I work on are these VA disability compensation cases, which is just that cash payment for disability. And I can't charge any fee. So the VA has a rule on charging fees. I can't charge a fee for an initial application, which is different than Social Security, right?
Yeah.
I can't charge a fee just to fill out forms. I can only charge a contingency fee based on the amount of retroactive payment the veteran receives. So if I do an appeal and we appeal and we get a rating that increases like back pay, a lump sum back pay, and these lump sum back pays can be six figures because the VA can screw up these things for years and years and years on end. I get 20% of that, and that's what's considered, and that comes out of the veterans back pay.
Is that statutory, or is that just custom in the industry?
So that's custom in the industry. The VA has said that, so the VA can actually intervene, and the way it works is the VA will actually withhold benefits. So the VA, if there's a positive rating decision that awards back pay, the veteran gets 80% immediately, and then 20% is withheld for 60 days. And the veteran can appeal and say, actually, my lawyer didn't do anything on my case. He was not entitled to a fee. It's never happened to me. But after 60 days, it gets released to me. 20% is what the VA considers presumptively reasonable. I can charge more, but the VA will not withhold that money for me. They will only withhold up to 20%.
Okay. If you're going to charge more, what is that? Directly with the client, and then you would...
Directly with the client.
And I suppose theoretically you could pursue them, or they could pay voluntarily. And I assume that 99 out of 100 times, if not higher, nobody does that.
Correct. And there have been some, because of various administrative problems, the VA has not been paying us, within that 60 to 90 day window. It's been more like 150 to 200 day window now. Yeah. Which, if you're trying to run a business, stinks.
Yeah, especially if it's a relatively new one, because you don't have that sort of steady cash flow coming in.
Exactly. So we are. Some of my colleagues are switching to the direct pay model, where the veteran will actually pay directly. I am not right now, just because I prefer to only go after one organization for my money. Yeah. As opposed to trying to chase down clients. Yeah. After the fact.
It's not great. It's not great for referrals either.
I hate asking for money. I hate doing it.
Right. So there's let's call the contingency, the 20% on the back pay. What else is there?
So then, there's discharge upgrades, right? Maybe you got an other than honorable or general discharge, which can be an impediment to getting a job down the road, or some other benefits that only come with an honorable discharge, like the GI Bill. And you can charge like a flat fee for those to do discharge upgrades. I don't really do a lot of those, just because it's not something I find fulfilling right now. That's another one of them.
What's general theory here? Is that the person got a less than honorable discharge because of their injury that wasn't promptly or properly recognized or accounted for, so they kept getting written up or kept getting into trouble with their commander?
Exactly it. Okay. Exactly it. A lot of folks come back from war with PTSD and various other psychological ailments, and they're not properly treated. The veteran doesn't necessarily know how to treat themselves, and they get in trouble with booze or drugs, and they get kicked out with a less than honorable discharge. And the VA the Department of Defense has actually recognized this as a problem and said, if this happened to you, come back to us and we will re-review your discharge and give you preferential treatment for an upgrade. And there's been a lot of litigation actually about this, and various legal clinics have taken them. I don't really take those cases, but there are a slew of benefits available to veterans from the VA, including healthcare, which is a big one. Whether you're eligible for healthcare is like a matrix that is really terribly confusing.
Oh, really? I thought all veterans had VA healthcare coverage.
You do if you're rated above a certain amount, you get full coverage. If you're on Medicaid, if you are eligible for Medicaid, you get coverage, and then you also always get coverage for something that is service related.
Okay.
Um, so there are a couple different like avenues to get VA medical coverage, but if you get an other than honorable discharge, they can actually disqualify you for medical coverage, and you have to go through like an administrative review process.
And that's also something the lawyer can be involved with.
Yeah, to a certain degree. It's a weird. I don't do that much of it just because it's like in order for me to do that, quite frankly, I would maybe I'll start taking them on pro bono when I get some more resources. But it's like a weird position where if I'm doing this for somebody, they clearly don't have much money,
right?
And they clearly need the service. So what I would like to see happen is maybe law schools and clinics really set up to take these cases on and fight these cases, because I mean, yeah, I could charge you $1,500 for VA disability for discharge benefits appeal, but like you probably don't have the money. I don't have the time to do it unless I charge you, because like I need to make money for my firm. I've got staff to pay, right?
Sure.
So as much as I want to do them, I mean, if someone would pay me, if someone would pay me a salary to just do these things, I'd do them. But that's another thing that is out there, that if you get another than honorable, now, even if you get like a bad conduct or dishonorable discharge at court martial, because you can re-enlist beforehand, right? So like you do your first 3 years, you re-enlist, you do another 3 years, you re-enlist, and then you do something, you get court martial, you get dishonorable discharge. You still had honorable periods of service in those time periods, so you can actually get benefits for those. And it gets really complicated, and a lot of litigation, a lot of spilled ink over those, to tell you the truth. So, and then I mean, there's so many benefits for. Even if you have an other than honorable discharge, you might be eligible. You might not get your GI Bill, but you might be eligible for something called vocational rehab, which people have used to pay for grad school and law school.
Mm-hmm.
There's various VA home loan programs, 0% down, low rates. State of Maryland now, actually, if you are at 100% VA disabled, you don't pay property taxes.
Oh, wow.
Which is significant, right?
Sure.
So you also don't. I think you don't have to pay various licensing fees. So there are a lot of like random benefits to being rated with a VA disability. So it's out there.
Okay. So someone like yourself is familiar with all those, or at least knows where to look and help people navigate them. And perhaps in some cases, it's something where, it might be worth retaining. It might, if they have the available funds.
Yep. So as I'm doing this, so my firm is less than a year old, and as I'm doing this, as I'm gathering more resources, I'm trying to distill them and make them publicly available on my website, do YouTube videos to kind of help educate people on them.
That's great.
As part of like hey, here's what I learned. So maybe, if the Google algorithm smiles upon me, someone will find my website. And I might not be able to help them with that particular benefit because it's just not something I do. But at least it gives them that information, hopefully a starting point.
Maybe someone will hear this and start a tax-exempt foundation to pay folks like yourself to do the things that you really can't otherwise do, because you don't have the incentive to do it, because you have to spend your time on things to feed your family. So anyone listening, maybe something to roll over if you're, knock around if you're a veteran or a supporter of the military and our folks who came back from wherever they were, not entirely 100% and need a little bit of help. So, all right, great. Andy Gross, tell us where people can find you, how they can see those YouTube videos, how they can access that website, and and anything that you have to promote up to and including your law firm.
So law Office of Andrew P. Gross, www.apgrosslaw.com. I'm on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Andrew Gross. I go by Andy, but you can find me there. You can also find me on Facebook. Stuff is in flux right now as of the date of this recording. We're just really getting our content calendar going and getting into that system of publishing content. But the goal is to put out a video and blog article every week to kind of help. You can find me that way. Also, if you're a Maryland lawyer listening to this, I'm in the Maryland Lawyers Facebook group. I get tagged whenever the word veteran, you say veteran 3 times, and I think I magically appear in the Maryland Lawyer Facebook group. I think that's how that works. But Google me, you'll find me. I'm not Akiva Gross. I get confused with him sometimes. I'm Andy Gross or Andrew Gross. That's the best way to reach out and find me.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Andy, for coming on in. Folks, you heard his stuff. And thanks for listening to Garden of Doom. And I'm sorry, Garden Views. Get my own shows confused. And we will see you next time.
Used to drive a Cadillac. Now I pack it on my back. Used to drive a limousine. Now I'm wearing army green. Dress it round and cover down. 40 inches all around. 9 to the front and 6 to the rear. That's the way we do it here. Used to date a beauty queen. Now I date my N16. Ain't no use in looking down. Ain't no discharge on the ground. Ain't no use in going back. Jody's got your Cadillac. Ain't no use in calling home. Jody's got your girl and gone. Prettiest girl I ever saw was sipping bourbon through a straw.